Yes. Now, as I have briefed you a little bit about my upcoming book, the book is already done. And now I'm working on finals, getting the finals interviews from different viewers, audience, mostly immigrants or people who were not born in the US and they found themselves in the state. So in that case, I would like to know more about what happened when you get in US. What was your expectation? Yeah, let's start by that.
Okay, so yeah, for when you come to the USA, I guess what I know is the stories I've heard about the US is that most people don't know. They don't expect to come here and meet other Africans or other blacks. Most of us living out there in the camps, we have no clue how the US really is. When we get here, and some of us have never heard the language spoken on this side. Maybe we heard it on the TV, etc., but we don't really know until we get here.
Yeah.
And the US has been a great opportunity because they offer many types of visas. For us, for the majority of us, we come as immigrants or asylum seekers. But there are other who come here through the lotteries or student visas. So the US has a range of ways to bring in new people. And for the majority of us from Africa, especially East Africa, is in Congo, we come through as refugees or asylum seekers. And maybe a small quantity of us come through as students or lottery winners, lottery visas.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I would have to say maybe the easiest way to come here is through immigration as an immigrant. But I've had more people complain about coming here as students because the requirement is different.
Mm-hmm.
You have to come when you're a student, you have to show that you can support yourself and that you have the right grades, that you can do well before you're approved. So for that one, I think that one is the most challenging. But the people who have it easier might be immigrants people or asylum seekers because they get support. We have here the International Institute. It's an organization that tries to help us who are new arrivals with English to basically learn our environment so we can use it better to benefit ourselves and the rest of the community. So that's one thing I know. And English is a challenge for the majority of us. But if you're from Uganda, you might do better. You might move faster up, you might be able to even there's tests you can do and if you can pass them to prove that you qualify for the work you've done or the degree you've done in your country, it's possible to pass a bit faster. But if you're limited, you speak French or another language, which the majority here don't speak, because here it's more like English and Spanish, right?
Actually, yes.
There's not that many countries in Africa that speak English or Spanish.
Right.
And for the majority of the refugees coming through, they don't speak any of those languages. They speak a native language, maybe Swahili or Kinyarwanda or Kirundi, something like that. So, but the opportunity comes to the International Institute, which these are organizations the government has set up to help new arrivals in the country. And we all go through that process. We all go through these international institutes set up by the US government.
Yes, now you have said see you have a lot of point to talk about, which I would be happy if you also give me any future time and discuss more, mostly when it comes to people who come to US to seek different opportunities, because I've had you have knowledge or you are conversant with that very topic. So moving forward, let's dig around our challenges and concerns in line with how you personally, when you came here, if there is any challenges you faced, if it ever happened, how did you overcome it?
Yes, so the weather in the United States is extreme. That's for me, it was facing the weather. You know, Africa has beautiful weather. Every once in a while, you do have bad rains, but it's not that serious compared to here, where you have tornadoes, you have hurricanes, you have strong winds. Sometimes you have snow and below zero temperatures, right? So sometimes those are the biggest challenge, the weather. You might go into a place, you might be living in an area which at any time could be swiped by tornadoes. I know people living in Kentucky would, Bowling Green, Kentucky, would vouch on this. The United States has extreme weather. And that's something that a lot of people who come from Africa might be shocked to find, that the weather here is so crazy, right?
Yes.
It's a shock to be in a place where, you know, they have installed sirens just to warn you when the wind gets really bad.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so the weather here can get so bad. And if it's not too hot, it's too cold. If it's not too cold, it's too hot. It's to a point where in most houses are built so that they have cooling and heating systems. Back home in Africa, we are not used to that.
Yeah,
Right?
correct.
You can just build anything in Africa. you
Yeah.
can you can live in a hut and it's perfectly fine, right? In the camps, people are living in huts,
Mhm.
and you can be cool in a hut. You can stay cool in a hut, and you don't have to worry too much about the weather being too extreme. But here,
Mhm.
that's not a possibility. Uh, During the summertime, it's ridiculous. You have to stay cool.
Yes.
During the winter time, you have to stay warm. During the springtime, you have to be careful and not get sick, you know?
Yes.
And with the weather shifts comes, it's much easier for viruses and all those things to infect you. So those are the extremes that I found here.
Yeah.
Another problem is that nobody expects this country to have a high crime. Not all of the portions in the country are high crime, but especially in the eastern states, like Chicago's and in the big cities. Uh, as refugees, you don't expect these big cities to be run down. But America is an old country, so there is a lot of dangerous cities with high crime. So you have to be careful how you communicate with people. You know, if you're new here, you might not know. You might not know how to survive,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
You might not know how to communicate with the majority.
Mhm.
Here you see, when you first get here, you see other blacks, and you think, oh, you know, these are just like us. We are refugees. Maybe they are refugees, but if they are natives, natives behave differently than Africans, right?
Exactly.
Their
Mhm.
behaviors are different. Um, in a place like here in St. Louis, it's not very uncommon uh, to see that not this place is not entirely like just a. What I didn't expect was I didn't expect the state to be the city to be almost self-segregated. You see blacks living in their own and whites living on their own, and you see the poor living with the poor, and the wealthy living with the wealthy. So there's a huge gap between the rich and the poor, and it's difficult to come in contact or in communication with the politics, right?
Yes.
Because of the type of government we have, it's not decisions aren't made quickly; they are made slow. So building roads or repairing something can take weeks to months instead of days. So unlike in a place like Rwanda where things are much faster because it's a smaller country, here it's vast. Things take much longer to be done.
Yes.
Lots of families. The family structures here are not good for the majority of blacks. That was a shock for me. And
Yes.
I read the statistics, and I found out that you know, about the history and the history of the country, racism, slavery. But now you just have it's like a rundown where you have black people.
Yes.
The majority of them, the majority of the youth are raised in single parent families, right? Because there's a high that many people go to jail. Many of the men end up in jails or end up getting into trouble. So that was a shock for me. Find out that this is going on. Although a we have amendments which give many people rights, there's also just many social problems
Yes.
in the country within the United States. There's so many. So that's something that was shock. Another one is the LGBT movement. It's,
Yeah.
it's very strong in the United States. You have the country free on that.
Yes.
You have LGBT, you are free to be LGBT. I wouldn't say this was the case when I started high school or earlier on in the 2013. It was a bit, there wasn't that much freedom. I think this movement started more with President Obama and with the votes to allow LGBT marriages. So that's another thing,
Yes.
which other countries like Uganda never agree with. At this moment, we know that Uganda doesn't agree with this, and
Yeah,
the
disagrees. Yes. Yeah.
completely disagrees.
Yeah.
And so this is like a Christian country, but the population is perfectly, the majority is in agreement with um, the LGBT movement. So that was another shock, which kind of surprises me and many others who are so curious to know why is this country like this?
Yes.
So uh, that's a that's something to see when you get here. You don't expect these things, but this. Um, so if you compare the United States to the outside world, it's things are slow. I would say they are not very fast. They're very slow because of the politics. The politics, they try to get things done, but at the same time, you have the majority of people who are still depending on the government for subsidies like food stamps. Many poor have to, they can't afford medicine. Medicine is expensive. You have to get Medicare. Can you imagine you have to have Medicare, some form of Medicare, to go to the hospital? While in Africa, in most countries in Africa, you just pay the money. You know, you
Correct.
go to the hospital, $10, you get checked and you get cleaned up or whatever, right? It doesn't cost you a fortune to get medicated,
Yes.
but here it can cost you an arm and a leg,
Exactly.
cost millions of dollars,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Uh, food
Mhm.
here is risky. There is some form of language
Mhm.
which has created,
Mhm.
and most food here in the stores, if you enter any store,
Yeah.
I dare enter any store, there is a division
Mhm.
of food which grows in the ground
Mhm.
and things which are packaged, right?
Yes.
And so you have a lot of packaged goods. People here, a lot of junk, a lot of fast food.
Mhm.
And so the obesity in the United States is very high.
I get you.
People here are obese,
Yes.
right? But in a place like Burundi,
Mhm.
you can go for days walking Bujumbura
Mhm.
and not meet a single obese person. It's rare to see somebody with a woman or a man with a fat stomach or a fat body.
Mhm.
It's very rare. But
Mhm.
here,
Mhm.
the majority of people are obese,
Yes.
and the population of elderly is very high.
Get you.
That's another. So,
Mhm.
and no one tells you how to eat when you come to the United States. So a lot of refugees, what gets them sick is what they eat, and especially the new generation. When they come here, they have children.
Mhm.
They end up adapting to the food here.
Mhm.
So we are starting to see like more uh, diabetics.
Yeah, I
As,
get your point. Mm.
uh, so that's a shock, you
Yeah.
know.
Yes.
And people don't have time to grow their own food. In the camps, we all had gardens, we all had shambas and whatever.
Yeah, I know that.
But here, you definitely have to go to the store,
Mhm.
okay? But again, the US is not all bad. It's good. Things are easy, and this is why
Mhm.
there are many issues.
Yes.
There is more of a war of wars and famine.
Mhm.
Here, it's more like you're likely to see uh, a rich man being skinny,
Mhm.
while poor person is the one who is fat.
Yeah,
Kind
correct.
of opposite.
Yes.
Here, the
Yeah.
fat people with the high blood pressure,
Yeah.
diabetes,
Mhm.
those health problems,
Yes.
mental health issues,
Mhm.
those are the poor because
Yeah.
they eat a lot of junk, a lot of unhealthy. You know, in the United States, soda is cheaper than water,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
1 liter of Coke is like $1,
Yes.
but a a liter of water is
Mhm.
almost $2,
Mhm.
right? So Coca-Cola
Mhm.
is cheaper
Yeah.
than a bottle of water.
Yeah.
So you can see life is good here, but it's just that the eating habits
Mhm.
of many refugees don't change. We are
Yeah.
used to having, and that's why you hear a lot of refugees. They say, "Oh, in the United States, everything tastes sweet, everything tastes bad."
Yeah.
Well, because you are having them every day,
Mhm.
but in Africa, you had them once a year or once in a while. In
Mhm.
Africa, you couldn't just go and buy yourself a case of beer and sit and drink on your own.
Mhm.
But here you can do that,
Yeah.
right? You can indulge.
Mhm.
And when you start to indulge in things all the time, they get boring, right?
Yeah.
You get bored.
I
And so
agree with you. Yeah.
that's the big problem with that refugees I believe face when they first come here. They just
Mm,
they become Americanized, but
mhm,
slowly.
mhm.
And the biggest impact is, I think, is food.
Okay.
Yes, by
So,
food.
okay. So now, based on the challenges, expectation you have pointed out, now would you be in a position to give what I would call recommendations so that when I submit the book to USA Congress or the White House, uh, they will be in a position to see what the immigrants or the people who were not born in the US wish to hear from them, like their feedback would be based on what the recommendation you provided.
Yes. So for the United States, the United States government does so far they do what they're supposed to do when it comes to immigration.
Mm-hmm.
They allow people to come in, and they do have a different type of visas which allowing people to come in and work.
Mm-hmm.
I would say they should allow more educated people to come in because that's good for the country.
Mm-hmm.
Educated people, especially educated Africans,
Mm-hmm.
because although many of them are running away from war,
Mm-hmm.
some people, they are doctors, they are lawyers,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, they've had their education and experience, they practice, they
Yes.
can. I think the US should bring those people more, they should bring more of them in, bring in more educated people.
Mm-hmm.
It will be good for the community, especially the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
It will improve diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if they are speaking a different language,
Mm-hmm.
we're coming to a point where the technology is there
Mm-hmm.
to make it easy for communication, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
It's not like, 10 years ago where we didn't have these, Google wasn't as powerful, you couldn't translate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like 10 years ago, let's say 15, 20 years ago, we didn't have smartphone, we didn't have a way of communicating faster.
Mm-hmm.
But now you can easily communicate,
Mm-hmm.
so I believe that the US should invite more educated people from Uganda, from Congo, from Rwanda,
Mm-hmm.
East Africa, Ethiopia,
Mm-hmm.
bring them in, bring those in as the majority, because when they come here,
Yes.
they are motivated. Not only do they want to help build the United States, they
Mm-hmm.
also help to stabilize the places where they're from.
Exactly.
When they return, or when, because they are the members of the diaspora,
Mm-hmm.
they do good things when they come here, learn new skills,
Mm-hmm.
and take them back and forth. But when you bring, I know that also people who are just need help
Yes.
coming in, that's a good thing. It's a
Mm-hmm.
great thing to help those who are in need.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I see that many educated people um, are living out there in Africa,
Mm-hmm.
but they want to come here and learn new skills
Yes.
which can help to benefit
Mm-hmm.
Africa. Because if we were to train them here
Yes.
and provide them new skills,
Mm-hmm.
they could help the refugees
Mm-hmm.
in the same light that the United States is doing.
Yes.
They would be the brains that bring new jobs to the continent. Because for now, Africa is mostly just what's being taken out of Africa is raw minerals. Like, for example, in Congo, Congo has all of that coltan, has all of that gold, has timber, freshwater rivers, all of those natural resources, human resources.
Yes.
But the only issue is that they have industry. They don't have big things happening, right? We have to look at the Chinese. For help, we have to look at Europe. But if we were to look at the United States, if we could get more support from United, train more of our youth here and have them build on that side, I think it would greatly benefit the United States and those countries like Congo, which need, of course, new intellects, new intellectuals. Yes, because that's what's happening right now. I mean, we have. Imagine you have to move your cobalt outside of Congo just to have the planes. What if we have Congo make the planes? It's not like we don't have the numbers of people. Place to do it. We have the land, we have the resources. We just lack the education. During Mobutu's entry to power, for example, you could count the number of educated people with your hands.
Yes.
But now we have hundreds of thousands educated people, but they are still limited, right? You might be educated, but if you're not practicing, then it's kind of like a pointless, right?
Yes.
If those institutions are too far away, then you can't practice.
I get your point.
Yes. So to have Africa transform Africans to come and learn from the West, because Westerners are the teachers. They are the teachers. They are the ones who have gone through industrialization. They have the machines, have the resources, but we don't have the machine.
Yeah, I get you.
You understand? They have the machines, but they lack the resources. This is why we have the wars in Africa, you know. The Westerns want our resources, but we lack the knowledge to provide them the full products.
Yes.
One day I want to see Congo doing what Boeing is doing.
Yes.
We have the cobalt, we have the metals, we have the human resources, right? We just need the practice to get this established, you know, at the same level as I said. This is what Chinese are doing. The Chinese, China is when you walk into Washington University here in St. Louis, right?
Yes.
The majority of the students there are Chinese. Why? Because the Chinese are realizing they need to educate their people here in the West.
Yes.
So when we go back to China, they continue to build China.
Yes.
So China has a huge portion of their workforce coming out of China into Western countries to study. But African countries, because of their issues and squabbles,
so
they
now,
are not doing.
Yeah, to cut you short, do you think when I approach the USA Congress and the White House over the last part of your recommendation, do you think they would be in a position to work in your favor? Because if I understand you well, it would be something which the African Union or East Africa would be in a position to chip in and support their people to come and do that.
Yes, it would be good if we have bad leadership in Africa and in those East African countries, and by a lot of the East African countries stagnate behind. They kind of just go, they develop slowly. For them, the big ones, with the big dictators complaining, oh, yeah, we have improved the life, the quality, the roads are built, but all of that progress is nothing if the population is not being elevated through education.
Yes.
If I'm correct, improvement in technology,
yes,
is what increases efficiency, right?
I agree.
The population